It's 40,000 years ago, in what is now northern China. The ground is frozen hard enough to bruise an unprotected heel. A hunter crouches at a riverbank, weight balanced on the balls of both feet. There is no rubber underfoot, no sole, no strap. And yet, something is different about the way this person walks. Look closely at the toes, and a strange thing appears. They're slimmer than they should be. Slimmer than any human toe bone before this moment in history. That small detail is about to unravel one of the quietest mysteries in human evolution. Here's the question most people never think to ask. For how long did humans walk this earth with nothing at all between their skin and the ground? The honest answer is staggering. For roughly 2 million years, through ice ages, deserts, mountain crossings, and journeys out of Africa into every corner of the planet, the fossil record shows almost no direct sign that anyone was wearing anything on their feet at all. Most people assume cavemen wrapped their feet in fur the moment it got cold. But archaeology tells a very different story. Shoes, it turns out, are one of the newest inventions in the human toolkit. Younger than fire, younger than clothing, arguably younger than art. So why did it take so long? And how, exactly, do scientists claim to know the answer to a question about an object that no longer exists? Before we can understand why shoes came late, we need to understand a body that never needed them. At Laetoli, in modern Tanzania, footprints preserved in volcanic ash record a walk taken 3.6 million years ago. The stride is unmistakably human-like, heel striking first, weight rolling forward through an arch, push-off through the big toe. Rewind less far to Ileret in Kenya, and footprints left by Homo erectus 1.5 million years ago show a foot almost indistinguishable from a modern one, a true arch, a big toe in line with the others rather than splayed like an ape's, a heel built to absorb shock stride after stride. This wasn't an accident, it was engineering. Bone, tendon, and thick calloused skin evolving together for one purpose: putting bare skin directly onto rock, sand, ice, and thorn for tens of thousands of kilometers over a lifetime. Here's the twist most documentaries skip. The human foot didn't evolve despite going barefoot. It evolved because of it. Every arch, every fat pad, every ligament is a barefoot tool. Shoes, when they finally arrived, weren't completing the foot. They were interrupting a very old conversation between skin and ground. So if shoes existed early, why don't we just dig one up? Because nature is an efficient recycler. Leather, woven grass, bark fiber, the raw materials of ancient footwear are exactly the kind of organic material that rots, molds, and disintegrates within decades in most soil conditions. A stone spear point can survive 1,000,000 years. A shoe almost never does. This creates a genuine detective problem. If the object is gone, how can anyone say with any confidence when shoes began? The answer came not from a shoe, it came from a toe. In the early 2000s, anthropologist Erik Trinkaus noticed something in the human skeletal record that nobody had thought to look for. When people walk truly barefoot, their smaller toes do real mechanical work, curling and gripping the ground for traction on every step, especially at push-off. Do that for a lifetime, and those toe bones grow measurably thicker and more robust, just as any bone thickens under repeated load. But wear a shoe with a firm sole, and the sole does that gripping job instead. The toes are, in effect, given early retirement. Over a lifetime, their bones grow noticeably slimmer. Trinkaus realized this meant the human skeleton itself was a kind of hidden footwear record. No shoe required, just a comparison of toe bone thickness against overall leg robusticity. He applied the method to a roughly 40,000-year-old skeleton called Tianyuan 1, discovered in a cave near Zhoukoudian, China. The leg bones were as strong as any hunter-gatherer's, but the toes were unusually slender, a mismatch that, by Trinkaus's method, points to habitual footwear use nearly 40,000 years ago, long before any surviving shoe, long before anyone expected to find such evidence at all. It's a strange kind of proof. Nothing was found except a difference in bone shape, and that absence of expected robustness became the presence of an invisible technology. The next surprise came not from a lab measurement, but from a grave. At Sunghir in Russia, archaeologists excavating burials roughly 30,000 to 34,000 years old found something almost impossible to explain at first. Thousands of small ivory beads, arranged in tight, deliberate rows running along the ankles and lower legs of the skeletons. The leather or hide those beads had once been sewn onto had rotted away millennia ago. But beads don't rot. They stayed exactly where the vanished material had held them, and in doing so, they preserved the outline of clothing that no longer physically existed. Many archaeologists read that pattern as the ghost of a soft leather boot, beaded, fitted, and buried with its owner in the depths of an Ice Age winter. Think about what that means. These weren't crude wrappings. This was tailoring. Someone measured, cut, stitched, and decorated footwear for a person they loved enough to bury with it. Bones and beads are powerful clues, but eventually, scientists got lucky and the ground gave something back whole. In Fort Rock Cave, Oregon, archaeologists found sandals woven from sagebrush bark, radiocarbon dated to roughly 9,000 to 10,000 years old. They are, to date, the oldest surviving shoes on the planet. And they survived only because the cave's dry desert conditions happened to be perfect for preserving plant fiber that would have rotted almost anywhere else. Then, in 2008, in a cave called Tianyuan in the mountains of Armenia, researchers found something even rarer, a complete one-piece leather shoe, its shape still intact, dated to about 3,500 BCE, roughly 5,500 years old. It had survived because it was sealed beneath a thick layer of sheep dung, which, unglamorously, created a nearly airtight preserving crust. Sometimes the difference between lost forever and one of humanity's great archaeological treasures is a few centimeters of dung. That shoe's design, a single piece of hide wrapped and laced around the foot, turns out to closely resemble traditional shoes still worn in parts of Europe within living memory. Irish pampooties, Balkan opanchi. A 5,500-year-old idea still walking around today. If anyone shows us the oldest shoe, a body found frozen in the Alps shows us the most complete one. Ötzi the Iceman, who died around 3,300 BCE, roughly 5,300 years ago, was preserved in glacial ice along with his full outfit. His shoes were not simple. They were composite objects, waterproof bearskin for the sole, soft deer hide for the upper, and, this is the detail that stops people, a woven bark fiber net stuffed with dry hay packed inside as insulation. That is, functionally, an early insulated winter boot. Someone in the Copper Age had already worked out that trapped air, not just thick material, is what keeps feet warm. The same principle behind a modern down jacket or a thermos flask. Here's the twist that reframes everything we've just seen. Almost all of this early footwear evidence, Tianyuan, Sunghir, Ötzi, comes from cold, northern, Ice Age environments. That's not a coincidence. It's a strong clue about why shoes were invented at all. For nearly the entire span of human evolution in Africa and other warm regions, bare feet worked. Thick calluses, careful footing, and simply avoiding the hottest sand at midday were often solution enough. It was only when humans pushed into brutally cold, glaciated Eurasia that frostbite, not comfort, became the design problem that shoes solved. Which means shoes weren't a universal human milestone, arriving everywhere at once like fire or language. They were a regional survival technology, invented independently wherever the cold made bare feet a liability, while people in warmer regions simply kept walking as they always had for thousands of years afterward. That difference didn't disappear when history began. It's still visible in feet today. Researchers studying modern populations who grow up habitually barefoot find measurably wider feet, spread toes, and thicker natural padding compared to people who grow up in enclosed shoes from early childhood, evidence that the foot, even now, keeps adapting in real time to whatever the ground or the shoe demands of it. Instead of buying insoles for a bad arch, imagine growing an arch shaped entirely by how you actually walked. Instead of asking which sneaker brand, Imagine the sneaker never existing at all. It would be easy to look at 2 million barefoot years and assume our ancestors simply didn't know any better. The evidence says the opposite. The moment cold climate actually demanded it, humans didn't fumble toward a crude answer. They went from soft ivory-beaded boots to insulated multi-layer alpine shoes to woven sandals engineered for desert terrain in a geological eye blink. This wasn't primitive trial and error. It was rapid, precise, climate-specific problem-solving, carried out with sinew, hide, bark, and bone needles by people who understood their environment with a depth most of us have never had to develop. The next time you lace up a pair of shoes without a second thought, remember what that simple object represents. It isn't as old as fire. It isn't as old as language or art or even clothing. It is a late, hard-won answer to one specific problem, the cold, solved first not with a factory, but with a bark needle, an ivory bead, and someone who cared enough to make it fit. 2 million years of bare feet came before it, and somewhere, in a cave in Armenia, in the ice of the Alps, in the frozen ground of Ice Age Russia, the proof is still there. Not in the shoes themselves, most of which are gone forever, but in the quiet, patient shape of the bones they left behind.